class at University of South Carolina, Columbia.
He had the Pope come.
The Pope visited.
I remember that. She taught that class in the Government and International Studies Department down there.
Yeah. So he was spending a lot of money. He said that it had to be spent because he wanted to reward the big donors to the university. The Greenville News, along with eventually the Associated Press and the Charlotte Observer, sought the spending records for a foundation that the university had set up called the Carolina Research and Development Foundation. And all of the money that was being spent was being funneled through this foundation. It was not coming directly out of the university's checking accounts. So we filed an FOIA request to seek all of the spending records from the foundation. And we were turned down. And the university turned us down on the grounds that, what do you think their argument was?
It was private.
Are you taking this class? Okay. All right, we'll do another question. All right, they turned us down on the grounds that it was private money, that the FOI Act only applies to public foundations and public money. And we filed a lawsuit. And during the course of the lawsuit, we made a pretty compelling case that there was public funding that was being funneled through the foundation and mingled with the private donations, thereby making it all public money. And a couple of examples, there was a piece of land in downtown Columbia, right across from the State House, that the university acquired. I can't remember exactly how. The land was transferred into the foundation. The foundation sold the land for $5 million or something. We made the argument that was $5 million public dollars, and eventually won. Circuit Court ruled in our favor. The university appealed it to the state Supreme Court, and we won in the state Supreme Court. And this lawsuit went on for 4 years. So things got really interesting when we won the case in the state Supreme Court, and I was in Columbia at the time. And we said, okay, well, we're ready to come see the records. When do you want us to come, and where are they going to be? And they said, oh, turns out we don't have these records. We threw them away. So that's a real no-no. If you ever get into a legal bind and they're seeking some documents or something, never throw the documents away.
Or shred them.
Yeah, that's it's like committing perjury on the witness stand. It's the kind of thing that's going to end up really costing you. So we launched a series of depositions of various people who were involved, and we eventually found a kid named Mark Steele. And Mark Steele was a university student, in fact, an intern for Holderman. And Mark told us that he had been hired by the executive director of the foundation one weekend to dispose of all the records, and that he had met the fella at the building that was being renovated, and the foundation official put little post-it notes on all the boxes and said anything with a yellow post-it note goes in the dump. And Mark, and I think he had his dad with him, loaded all these boxes onto a trailer and hauled them to the Richland County landfill. And so we decided we were going to dig them up. We had to prove, we felt like we had to prove that these records were in fact destroyed. And we wanted to figure out what was in the records that was so horribly embarrassing that they would do this. And we took Mark out to the landfill one afternoon, and we asked him to show us where he had dumped the records. And I don't know if you've ever been to the Richland County landfill. You'll hang out there anytime.
Or any landfill.
Richland County landfill is just like moonscape. It's like this barren hundreds and hundreds of acres of just nothingness. There's no trees, there's just nothing out there except like the And what the landfill people do when they operate a landfill is they dig these huge trenches in the ground. They dig them about 20 feet deep, and they go about the length of a football field. And I don't think they're quite as wide as a football field, but they dig these huge trenches about the length of a football field. And then you start dumping stuff at one end of the trench, and the trench slowly fills up until you get to the other end, and then they pour all the dirt back over the top of it, and they slide over and they dig another trench. So the question from Mark was, can you like stand out here and point to a spot on the ground in the middle of nothingness as to where you dump these records? And Mark picked a spot and we started digging. And we hired some backhoe operators who worked at the dome, always eager for extra income. And they started digging these holes. And what we discovered was stuff doesn't really decompose when it's underground. You'd be surprised. I mean, I've heard stories of like hot dogs survive in a landfill. So what we found was when we dug these holes, is we would climb down into the bottom of the hole, we would take turns at this, and we would look for newspapers, which seemed appropriate. And when we found a newspaper, we'd hold it up and look at the date. And we could sort of plot our course based on the date. So if the date was like fairly new, we knew we had to go deeper into the trench. And if it was too old, people I guess tend to throw out their newspapers about the time they're published. I guess that doesn't say much about for the news industry. So after 3 days of digging, and I wish I had this photo. I had on this green jumpsuit that the former homeowner, I bought this house in Columbia just a few months earlier, and he'd left it on the back porch of this house. So I had this green jumpsuit on. I had this red bandana across my face. I was convinced I was going to get cholera or something. I had this bandana across my face. I had this hat, this baseball hat or something on. I had these big black thick neoprene gloves. And I would go down into